Charlene, thank you so much for your time. If you don't mind, kick us off for everybody that's not familiar with who you are. Please share a little bit about yourself and your involvement with BizWorld.
Yeah, I'm Charlene Vaca. I am the CEO of BizWorld. I have been with the organization for over 13 years now. I've been in this role as CEO since 2021, but I've been in various roles throughout the organization. A lot of my time working directly with operations and programs.
Super
Yeah.
exciting, super exciting. Man, your experience with BizWorld is out of this world. And so what would you say is what's the simplest way to explain what BizWorld
Mhm.
is and does, maybe to a busy teacher?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the simplest way is that we are an entrepreneurship education program that helps kids understand business and inspires their entrepreneurial mindsets. There's so much more to say, though, that we do that, as the program has been built over the years, was not necessarily the intent, but is the outcome that is very applicable in so many facets of the classroom.
It honestly goes so in depth. But
Mhm.
BizWorld is truly it's entrepreneurship education that's happening in classrooms, also some
Mhm.
out of classrooms, but that is teaching entrepreneurship with the purpose of teaching life skills through entrepreneurship. Is that right?
Yes. So, and that's the basis of what we do. It's teaching kids about business and entrepreneurship, but the entrepreneurial mindset are those life skills. What the correlation is between things that they may not address in the classroom normally, things that they're experiencing in the real world, and what they're learning in the classroom and how those correlate. And then just the skills that we just don't have common core content to build that are really needed for as they age. So when they become employees, employers, citizens, those life skills are just super important.
Love that. I love how you specifically said whether they become employers, employees, and just citizens, right? These are
Mhm.
skills that translate throughout entire life. Tell us a little bit, what does a typical day look like when BizWorld is being implemented and taught in a classroom?
It's very flexible. So it can look a lot of different ways, but what it usually looks like is fun is the word I would use. We have teachers though that teach full days over a course of a few days, or they do an hour a day over months. So there isn't really a typical implementation. That's what I love about BizWorld is getting to hear from all the educators the different ways that they integrate into their classroom, their after school programs, sometimes their student run stores, things like that. But usually, when BizWorld is being implemented, there are some guardrails and some instructions from the facilitator, from the teacher in the classroom, but it's really hands-on. Like you're giving them a direction to figure this out. And the kids are doing the work. They're having the conversations. They're making it happen.
When
Yeah.
you say this, this is an interesting concept for me that I'm trying to understand. You say through BizWorld, the kids are doing the work. And I've heard
Mhm.
about like student-led programs. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Can you try and explain that and how it actually benefits teachers and students?
Yeah. So we think of learning or instruction as here's this information and information. Now say it back to me. But you're not giving them a chance to like practice and trial and error and the ability, like learning from failure there's a higher retention rate. So when they're trying to figure something out, it helps them immediately realize why these other things didn't work, but this did work, and they're going to remember that that worked, right? And in biz world, there's especially on the onset, there's some things for younger ages when you're like, what is the word entrepreneur? Things of that nature that of course you're helping them through, you're explaining, but then they have to make the decisions, right? What is the best for my company? What is our goal? We're trying to make greeting cards. Are they going to be sentimental? Are they going to be funny? What's going to work for our audience? You're not telling them that answer. Who on our team has the best art skills? Those are like the little decisions that they're just working through as a team and you're not directing them to. They've applied for that job and now they got to do the role. So in that facet of the student-led learning is you're giving them a directive, a challenge, and they got to figure it out. And there is no right or wrong answer necessarily. In the finances, the math does have to math. But other than that, like for the most part, they have to figure it out and it's not right or wrong.
It sounds to me like a pretty ideal program for educators to teach and implement because it is, dare I say, hands off for them. Before an educator ever starts with BizWorld, what are some of the things that they maybe worry about or that could potentially hold them back?
Yeah, I think a big one is educators themselves not feeling like they're an expert in business. And I totally understand that. You don't need to be an expert in business. If you've ever bought anything in your life, you can teach BizWorld, right? The whole concept is really the basics, and we spell it out in the lesson plans and the guides that we give educators. There's nothing so complex that they would need a business degree to be able to implement. I think that's usually the biggest holdback of when we're speaking with educators of, but I'm not a business expert, or I don't know anyone who could come in and talk about business. You don't have to be. We're giving you the tools that you need as the facilitator to implement. And then it's just, examples like commercials or ads. And
Mm,
kids call them ads these days, right? Ads, you can show examples of what ads look like, and you don't have to be an expert on like a marketing expert on how to build the best commercial ever. It's super simple. You're giving them the basics, the groundwork for them to be enlightened and to start building those skills, what they're interested in. If it sparks their interest in being an entrepreneur, we're super excited about that. But if it just gets them to learn that them being super chatty can be a really great skill in as a sales role, wonderful.
I love that. But the piece that you shared there, where it's you don't need to be an expert in business by any means to teach this
Mhm.
entrepreneurship curriculum to your students. And you said if you've bought something ever in your life, you're pretty much equipped, like you are capable to teach BizWorld. Because it's also such a, is it okay to describe it almost like a business in a box type of program?
Definitely. We try to make it turnkey, right? That you can always contact BizWorld. Our team is willing to jump on the phone, a webinar. We have those that you can register to join. But you can open our guides, our teacher's manual, and teach. All you have to you know how to teach. We're giving you the tools to read through the PowerPoints, the lesson plans, the worksheets, all of that is laid out, and you just have to implement. There are things that you need to make room for in the classroom, making sure there's room for them to get up and move around and do things and be in groups and have a place to put the store. There are things that a teacher has to facilitate, but it's worth it, right? They to see them engaging together and doing things that are a little bit different than they normally do in the classroom is a really fun thing.
Okay, great. Beautiful. BizWorld is really easy for teachers to implement, right? It's very much like this student-led program. What do you think surprises educators most when they actually start to run one of BizWorld's programs?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that they're going into it maybe with the intent, oh, I think it's important for kids to know about business and entrepreneurship. The durable skill building, the life skills that they're just organically practicing as part of BizWorld is super important. And I think surprising for some who maybe haven't seen a lot of our content and we're talking about this. But also, it's like the social emotional learning that they're practicing throughout the program. The STEAM aspects or the potential for heavy STEAM integration can be surprising for teachers. But I think what is always, I don't know, it's surprising because teachers are expecting students to, they want to see them learn. So I don't know if surprising is the word, but really seeing that like blossoming of a personality, right? And a lot of times, like that's what I hear feedback from educators is always, it was so fun. All the students had so much fun, but there was this one student and they never really engaged or they never really got interested in anything we do. And oh my goodness, did they just come to shine? right? So again, I don't know if surprising's the word, but impactful, and that is what they remember.
Absolutely. When students actually light up, that's like what educators, dare I say, dream of. It's
Yeah.
like them being engaged, being excited about
Mhm.
learning. And so that's what BizWorld gives them.
Yeah.
That's so great. You touched on it just a little bit earlier. You mentioned failure. And so BizWorld's theme for this year is dream big and dare to fail. Is that right?
Yeah.
Nice. Where did that sort of idea even originate from? And what's sort of the impact and the reason why you all picked dream big and dare to fail?
We are born in the Silicon Valley, and so we are very close to the ear to the ground on the tech hub of the world, and that is a huge Silicon Valley motto, right? Is this failure culture of just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean that you stop, right? You learn. And so we are really big believers in that as a learning tool, as well as in some of my recent like conferences and stuff that I've been to, and you talk about that is that when you give students the room to try and to even if they're getting it wrong, that's okay because they're going to remember what they did wrong. And when they get it right, they're going to remember it even more. So that the retention of how to continue to do something because they did things wrong to begin with is super important for the like the retention of the learning. And so
Oh,
giving them the rope to be able to figure it out, move around, do what they're going to do, they're going to remember that even more because they did it. They weren't told to do it.
why do you think it is that so many students these days are afraid to raise their hands, to be wrong, or to fail in class?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think today's youth is living in a much different world than any of us grew up in. Even I had access to computers pretty young in grade school, but it's not the same, right? And I think that there's this light on them, a spotlight on them, and they're very reflected of their actions. And I see people all the time, the videos of yourself, you see all this content and people getting picked apart and it's it's scary, right? And so I think that kids are feeling that pressure. I don't wanna be the next meme, or I don't want people to think that I'm silly. If I don't know this, I don't want people to know that I don't know this. We've taken away that space to be like, "It's okay to figure it out." Like, you don't have to know everything. And so that's a really hard thing to address for anyone solely. And I hope that's part of what we're trying to do is at the end of our program, everyone's making different decisions. They're all going to have different outcomes. And it doesn't necessarily mean that any of the outcomes are wrong. Yes, we're going to value companies, and some people are going to have a profit and some are going to have a loss. But we look at other things than just their profit to then value their company and then how much do they retain and yeah, there's a highest number at the end that you can say is the highest valued company, but we don't call that a winner. We just reflect of what did you think you did really well? What would you have done differently? And then the rest, even just because you had a loss, it doesn't mean that you didn't have an awesome product. Maybe you just spent too much money on other things or sold too much of your company. So I think while we can't ourselves address that, I'm hoping that we're giving them the tools to see that mindset of being like asking and trying is learning.
Yeah, asking and trying is learning. And like in the visual program, it is truly learning. Even this dream big and dare to fail, like these failures, they're all learning moments. That's what it is to keep moving
Mhm.
forward. And then you touched on this a little bit, but I'm curious, how do educators begin to create a classroom where failure doesn't shut students down, where they can teach that failure is a productive exercise?
I am not a classroom educator or a trained educator. And so that is most certainly a question that many more people than me about setting up a classroom will know better. But what I do know is that when you give students, like young people, the encouragement that it's okay and that you haven't figured it out yet, keep trying. That mind frame as an educator or as a parent, as an adult, to make sure that they're hearing that, try again. It's okay. Get up. If you continue, that's the environment you're setting, they'll
Mm,
feel that and they'll learn from
mm,
that. So I think that's really important for us as the leaders in the classroom to showcase.
wonderful. So looking back at your time at BizWorld, what's one moment that maybe made you think this is why we do this? This is what makes it all worth it.
Oh, there 13 years is a long time. And I've seen a lot of different instances of this. And I will share two because I can't share one. Years ago, we do these things called BizWorld camps. And it's one of the only times that like I myself or our team are directly implementing BizWorld. And we usually work with a corporation and we work with the local school and we bring kids onto their campus to learn BizWorld. And so they get to experience these environments that they've probably never seen before. A corporate building, right? They get to see what it looks like inside. There's all these people working, business professionals. And I remember a little girl, and we had a presenter in the room, and she was like a vice president. She had a very high level role. And she was telling the kids about what she does and who she is and her background. And after she left, this little girl said to my colleague and I didn't know women could do things like this or women like me. And she was an African American girl and there was an African American woman. And seeing that like reflection of like, I can see myself in this person is so powerful for kids. And it's so important that they be able to see themselves reflected in society. And we don't always give that option. So I always love seeing that. And I love hearing about when teachers are able to bring in community members into the classroom to also have those experiences. So that was a big one for me in terms of like in the classroom. And another one was recently. I was at a conference and I engaged in this really great session. This gentleman had a really amazing tool for educators. It's called Inquire. And Atash was presenting. I thought it was great. I talked a little bit in the session. I connected with him afterwards on LinkedIn and we had a meeting. And in that meeting, he said, I have to tell you this. When you were talking and you said the name of your company, BizWorld, a light bulb went off. And I had to go back to my parents' house and look for this folder. I went through BizWorld when I was a kid in fifth grade. And I was like, what? So he's now in his 20s, I think. And he went through BizWorld when he was in fifth grade. And he is now a founder of an education startup. And so he said that it's one of the experiences he remembers the most vividly from his time in school. And he said that I asked him, do you feel like it had any impact on you and your trajectory? And he said, I am a founder in startup education. So I'd say yes. And so that was a moment we don't always get to meet the long-term impact of what our classroom or what our content does for
Mm,
kids when they're in fifth
mm.
grade 20 years from now. We've been around 27 years. Having that reminder that can see this, you remember this 20 something years later was super inspiring for me.
Yeah, that's inspiring to say the least.
Yeah.
Inspiring to say the least. Some of the other educators that I've spoken with say that they have students that come back and say BizWorld is the number one thing that they remember from third grade or fourth grade was going through the BizWorld program. And so having an individual, who knows, 20 years later say, I remember BizWorld and look at me today, it potentially shaped my entire life. We can't factually say that,
But
but
I think that most adults that I've spoken to, I didn't get to go through Visceral when I was a kid. But what I can tell you, what I remember from my elementary school days is I don't remember like the worksheets or the tests that we did or the individual lessons. I remember the things that we like got to do together, the field trips or the experiences or the group work, a project that I got to build for myself. Those are the things I remember. And all of that can be integrated into BizWorld, right? And so that's why it's so powerful. It is a lived experience. And we know how powerful that is, even as adults. And I think it's that's not hard for any of us to really fathom.
I appreciate that. We're running short on time, but I have two interesting questions for you. So, project-based learning gets talked about a lot these days. Would you say that BizWorld is project-based learning, and how would you describe it in that sense? Just simply because project-based learning gets talked about so much, can you tell us about BizWorld and how it relates to that?
Yeah. Yeah. So BizWorld is a project-based learning program because in project-based learning, you're giving them guidelines, you're giving them a project, and they're doing it. It's just it sounds. It's not overly complex. The name explains it, but the power of it is that the kids are figuring the things out. They're the ones putting it together. They're having the conversations between each other, and they're the ones shepherding along the process to get the project done. And we break that up throughout the program because it's a 20 plus hour program. So there's bits and pieces, there's various projects that they're working on, and then the project as a whole. But that's the importance is like they have the autonomy to figure out like what is the end result of this project. So BizWorld Plus is a project-based program, and all of our programming is we put that front and center to make sure that they're being able to play with the stuff. And then programs like Ideate, they're actually a base program. And so it's a little bit different because you're giving them a challenge that they have to figure out. They have to find a solution for. And that's also a really important learning journey for the students to get to work through.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And so then, Charlene, looking ahead at 2026, like what's new and upcoming? What are you excited about at BizWorld?
Yeah, we're really excited for 2026. We have been working really hard on our flagship content, BizWorld Plus, and what we'll be rolling out to educators this year. We have looked back at all of the versions of BizWorld over the last 27 years. We've talked to educators, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and that is the plus in BizWorld Plus. The content, the same great content is there. We've given some things a facelift, adjusted how some exercises are done, but we're giving you more. There's going to be some level ups coming, so you can teach in different grade levels, make the content a little bit more advanced, and just some new things to do, new ways to explain things for educators, more tools for us to help educators in implementation. So that's what I'm most excited about, not only in 2026, but to continue rolling out new content for BizWorld Plus. And the next big announcement is going to be Compass, which is something that we've been working on behind the scenes. Our programming in the classroom is so important to us to partner with classroom educators to instill these entrepreneurial mindsets and to build these life skills. But to go beyond just the classroom and to get them ready to come to us as entrepreneurs in our Yes program, we've built Compass, which is an asynchronous program, so direct to user that they can go through at their own pace to learn more about entrepreneurship and about what they like about entrepreneurship, what they could do as an entrepreneur, and help them find their idea and get ready to potentially bring something to us in our Young Entrepreneur Success Program that maybe we could accelerate and fund. So that is another huge thing we're looking forward to. And because we don't have enough on our plate, we're also extremely excited about our innovation sprint that we're going to be doing in conjunction with our Yes Demo Day this year. So we wanted to get more young people excited about the potential of being innovators. And so we're doing a hackathon model in lead up to our demo day in May, where we're going to be inviting a local high school to come join us to do an innovation sprint to come up with some pretty awesome business ideas. And the winning idea will land a spot in our Yes Accelerator this summer.
So exciting. So exciting. Of course, we'll link to everything and all the information is on the BizWorld website.
Mhm.
Charlene, thank you so much for your time. It's so greatly appreciated.